Hi superhumans, welcome back to my channel. It is such a beautiful afternoon here in Johannesburg. It's in the middle of a pretty crazy time. I'm sure wherever you are in the world, you're aware of this circumstance that the world finds ourselves in April of 2020. I'm trying to use this time at least to reflect and go inwards and to spend a little bit of time appreciating the surroundings that I live in. So I'm going to include a little clip here of what I can see so you know what I'm looking at while you're looking at me. Okay, that's a bit weird. In this video, I really wanted to talk about 10 beliefs that I think that you should adopt today. As you know, I'm reshaping the channel and everything is going to be focused about engineering your life for success, engineering your life for happiness. In the last video, which I'll link on the screen and down in the description below, we discussed that engineering is all about intervention. And that if you want to change or modify or create or remove some element of your life, whether you've used the terminology of engineering or not before, engineering is exactly what you're doing. So in this video, I want us to establish the beliefs that we need to hold in our minds for everything that we're going to do after this. Beliefs are the filter system through which we view the world. If your beliefs are not serving you, you may act in really self-destructive ways, whereas if your beliefs are serving you, you can live a life that way exceeds the expectations that you or anybody else around you had for yourself. They are the main filter through which we perceive this world. As we've discussed many times on this channel, there is no objective reality. There is only the reality as we interpret it to be, and in everyone's mind that is completely different. There are 7.8 billion versions of the world, and you need to discover whether the beliefs that you hold are working for you or against you in the way that you behave and interact with it. So let's dive right in and talk about the 10 beliefs that you should adopt today that will be a great foundation for everything that we're going to do from now going forward. The very first belief that you need to adopt is that all meaning depends on the context and ecology in which something is interpreted. Sometimes we can look at a situation, or we can look at an event or an idea that we have, and it seems like it will be the best thing we've ever done. But when you start to consider the effect that it will have on people and situations around you, you may realize that it isn't. And this is fundamental to everything that we do. Another positive about looking at things this way is when you realize that no event, situation, or person is actually objectively good or bad as they stand on their own. They only live up to the meaning that we choose to lay onto it. And that can be, both a positive and a benefit. That can be both a good thing and a bad thing. If there is something that you have done that you are struggling to let go of, if there's a mistake that you made in the past and you keep replaying it in your mind over and over, it's in itself, depending on what paintbrush you choose to paint it with, it can either be a positive thing or something that you can choose to learn from or grow from, or it can be something that's actually harming you, especially if you're not able to learn the lessons and just move on. So just remember that anything is dependent on the context and ecology in which you place it, and that's where meaning comes from. So this is really important to everything that we're going to be speaking about. The second belief that is beneficial to adopt is that resistance in someone is a sign of a lack of rapport. One of the things that they taught us in life coaching is that you really should adopt 100% of responsibility for the way that communication unfolds. So I don't know about you, but my mindset before that was that I'm choosing to adopt 50% responsibility for this. I can only control what I say. I have absolutely no control over how you interpret it. But once you start to realize is that your ability to influence and impact people alters and improves when you start to take a little bit more responsibility for the role that you can play in communication. I'm not sure if you've ever been in a situation where you've decided to enter a conversation and be your calmest, most understanding version of yourself, and you've tried to relay things in different ways in order to get understanding and place yourself in the person's shoes and really listen to what they say. And in the circumstances where you do that, I bet you that your outcome was way more favorable. And this all comes from us realizing that a lack of rapport can lead to disagreement. If somebody is not agreeing with you, or at least hearing you out, if you are arguing, you have the ability to change the direction of that conversation by using communication techniques, by altering the tone that you use, by choosing to hear the other person. Actually, I heard something very valuable from Marie Forleo, which is that if you want to end any argument, the two words that you can use are "you're right." And you'd be surprised the difference that makes if somebody is very heated up and very emotional. Just by saying to them, you're right, and then laying down your arguments, you then create a space where you guys can listen to each other and you can actually make progress. So when you take 100% responsibility for the communication, you start to use all the tools at your disposal to get in alignment with someone, rather than trying to find excuses and things that are wrong with that person, placing accountability external to yourself for the reason why you can't find alignment. So this is really pivotal to the work that we'll do in advance, and starts to give us more control over our lives. Take 100% responsibility for all communication. The third belief that you should adopt is twofold. The first part is that everyone is doing the best that they can with the resources that they have, and that the second part of it is that there is positive intent behind every behavior. And I know that some of you are immediately starting to think about a situation that you found yourself in recently, where somebody annoyed you, or somebody did the totally obvious incorrect thing at that point in time. How could they have been so selfish? How could they have been so inconsiderate? But when you start to adopt this way of thinking, you start to create a space of forgiveness, both towards other people and also towards yourself. Because when you place judgment on other people, the thing about the subconscious mind is it doesn't know the difference between you and another. Every sentiment that you echo and you vocalize, it reflects directly onto your perception of yourself. So if you say that that person is so selfish and inconsiderate, your mind can't separate that person from yourself and thinks that that's what you're saying towards yourself. So it always benefits us to paint the picture with a more positive brush than a negative one, because every bit of negativity that we throw out there, we're actually projecting back onto ourselves. So when you start to adopt this realization that actually, or a belief, because it's not about it being ultimately true, it's about what serves you. So when you start to think that everyone is doing their best, and behind every positive intent, behind every behavior is a positive intent, you start to give yourself space to forgive and to move on. And you can also do this with yourself. If there's something that you keep kicking yourself for that you've done in the past, realize that there was some positive thing that you were trying to achieve by what you did. And the other benefit of looking at things this way is when you realize that there is some positive aspect that you were trying to gain, even if you were doing it in a destructive way. Once you can break away and identify what that positive aspect is, you can think about finding mechanisms to still achieve that positive aspect without doing it in a destructive way. For example, I've noticed that whenever I have a big project or a big deadline that I have to do, I always wake up feeling kind of unwell at critical points. I'll have a stomach ache, I'll have a headache and something like this. And I started really thinking about why that was. Why is it whenever there is a really pivotal time, why do I always feel unwell? And I realized that I never give myself a break. Usually I always feel like I'm underperforming, and the only time I give myself a break is when I'm feeling sick. That for me is a justification for being able to take the day off. So my mind is trying to find ways to get a break and realizes that there's a lot of value in getting sick. And this is the strength of the psychosomatic connection that we have. Your mind is very good at following instructions that it gets, whether they are conscious or unconscious. And this is why we have to be so attentive to the stories that we tell ourselves. I started realizing that, hey, I'm trying to get a break. Instead of getting sick in order to get the break, I can simply just allow myself to take the time off. If I wake up feeling a little bit stressed and a little bit tense, I might do the things that are really urgent, but other than that, I might decide to give myself the morning off, to allow myself to really relax over weekends. I'm kind of this human doing instead of a human being, constantly feeling like I have to do things, and it's not always serving me. So I identified the positive intent behind the behavior, which was to catch a little bit of free time to allow myself to relax. But I can do it in many other ways besides getting sick. And now that I've done that, I'm able to catch myself in the process and realize, okay, you know what, body, we don't have to get an ailment, we can just relax, and it's been a lot better. So adopting this third belief, everybody is doing the best with the resources that they have, and that there is positive intent behind every behavior, will really allow you to open the world up of forgiveness of yourself, of others, and to do more constructive behaviors once you identify what the destructive ones are actually trying to benefit you with. The fourth belief that you should adopt today is that the map is not the territory. The GPS on your phone is only as effective as it does well in serving the purpose that it needs to serve. So when you're driving along the road, you don't need to know about the different kinds of sand and grass and trees that are where you are. You just need to know about the direction of the roads and where you can turn and can't turn and what the most effective routes are. But that doesn't mean that the map is truly accurate to reality, because there are so many details that are left out, but it serves the purpose of directing you. And the same thing goes with our lives and the images and perceptions that we create about reality as we see it. We are constantly taking in millions of bits of information, but only processing some of it, that which we deem it to be relevant, because if not, our brains would just explode if we were trying to interpret every sound and color and image that we see. You need to figure out what is actually useful to you and what is not. Sometimes a map has a specific purpose for a specific time. For example, when you were a child, you may have learned that it's not good to partake in adults' conversations. You should go and stick with the children because that's just not right and that's not respectful. And that was good. That was very appropriate at that age because the context of the conversation was not appropriate for you as a child. But as you got older, you started realizing that I should be able to defend myself and express my point of view in a respectful way. And the only way I'm going to learn to do that is by partaking in these adult conversations. So the map has changed, but the territory has not. It was always the same situation, perhaps even the same kinds of conversations, but now it suits your need to actually make those adjustments in the way that you see reality. And this goes for even more subtle concepts. For example, you may have some beliefs that have been passed down from your parents or your grandparents that may be really destructive perceptions of the world, and there was a time where you had no control over that map. But as you get older, you get to realize that you are in full control over which maps you download, how much you use them, and how often to renew them. And this is something that's really important, is we need to take the time to constantly reflect on the maps that we're using and seeing if they're beneficial, if they're useful, if they're valuable to the situations that we find ourselves in. Changing scene here a little bit because I think it was starting to get a little bit dark outside. The sun has sort of just set at the moment and this is a little bit close for my liking, but you know what, I don't feel like changing the lens, so this is what we're going to stick with. And now moving on to belief number 5 that I think that you should hold, which is that you get more of what you focus on. Sometimes the simplest things are the most effective. The simplest attitude changes that you can adopt are the most effective. Sometimes the most basic, fundamental, obvious quotes are the ones that have the most pivotal impact on our lives. And this is what this belief has been like for me. When I started reflecting a little bit more on what I guess I had heard and kind of understood my whole life, which is that the more energy you put into something, the more chance it has of actually following through, if it's a fear as well as if it's a dream that you have. When I started actually processing that and investing in that belief, my life just, it changed dramatically. It is so simple and it is so true. If you are into quantum physics, you'll know that the basic premise of it is that there are infinite realities that are happening at any one point in time, and the more energy that you insert into a specific direction gives it a higher probability of actually coming to fruition. And that goes with everything in your life, and this is why manifestation and the law of attraction have been so effective for so many people. We've all got the same well of energy to draw on, but the way that we utilize it and direct it is what creates vastly different results in all of our lives. The people who are able to harness their energy and direct it towards things that are in line with their goals, rather than being concerned about what this person says about them or about something that happened in the past or something that could potentially go wrong in the future, the more you're able to do that, the more you increase your chances of it actually happening that way. And I'm sure that we have all been through situations where we have seen the positive results of that, and it's just like, if we know that it's true, why don't we do it more? It's something so simple and it's something that really works. If there's just one of these 10 beliefs that you adopt today, just choosing to believe that you get more of what you focus on, it'll be miraculous. Okay, this is me a couple of hours later. It's been an absolutely crazy day in terms of work and everything else, but I'm jumping into belief number 6, which is that people have all the resources that they need in order to achieve the desired outcomes. The reason why this belief is important is that it equips you to be able to bring about the change that you want to in your life. If you have a choice between viewing everything that happens as being a consequence of the externalities in your life, or taking 100% responsibility for everything that occurs to you and actually realizing that you have the power to change the things in your life, I would definitely go for the second option, because that is the stage from which things can change. The other positive aspect to this belief is that once you realize that your state is what is unresourceful and not you or somebody else as a person, realizing that if you can change your states, you can change the way that you think and the way that you feel, which can bring about a whole different range of results. It is not a coincidence that motion is most of the word of emotion. To change the way that you feel, get around, move your body, do some exercise. And this goes for influencing the state that you feel as well as influencing people's states around you. So number 6 is really important to equipping and empowering us to change our lives. The 7th belief is that there is no failure, there is only feedback. I'm sure that you've heard all of the magnificent inventors of our time say that they never failed, they just found 1,000 ways that didn't work. When you look at life like this, you start to understand that not only does everything happen for a reason, but along the way, as you encounter stumbling blocks, those stumbling blocks become the things that make you so much more efficient and skilled at the thing that you're trying to do. The same certainly applies to my life. I remember I only got my driver's license on the 3rd attempt, and thank goodness for that. Even though I so desperately wanted it on the 1st attempt, I was not ready at that point in time. And the same goes for all of my adventures with music. I was rejected many times, and I was told that my music wasn't good on many occasions. And even though I wanted it so badly, as a result of getting that feedback and that rejection, it was actually really important to me on my path and evolving as a driver and as a musician. And this goes to almost every area of my life. If you start viewing failure as feedback and not as something purely negative, you'll start to take more risks as you realize that the worst that can happen is that you can actually learn from a situation, and this is very powerful. The 8th belief is that the person with the most flexibility wins. And this actually trickles back to one of the previous beliefs where we said that we want to take 100% responsibility for communication and realize that if somebody does not agree with us, or if we're struggling to get alignment, that's because we are failing to communicate in a way that can be understood by them. The value of this belief is that once you realize that the more you are willing to adapt in any situation, the more victorious outcomes you will get. If you have a very constrained, very restrictive view of what success looks like, of what a positive outcome looks like, you'll find that you'll be a lot more disappointed in life when your expectations are so precise and specific, so as to not give the universe its leeway to design an outcome that you may not even have thought of. You start to look at every experience that doesn't turn out exactly the way that you want it to as some sort of negative thing, or that it is a failure, and this certainly is not the case. So when you start being really flexible in your approaches to things, and when you start conversing with people, being really flexible to what the outcome and response can be, you start to realize that there's a whole multitude of scenarios that could result, that could be positive, that you may have not considered because you've been so rigid in your thinking. So number 8 really opens up the door for us to be more happy, because we start to look at a whole different range of options as things being positive, instead of being so confined to thinking that only if this happens will this be a positive outcome. Okay, I'm back. My memory card said that it was full and technology is not working with me today, but I refuse to give up. I'm going to jump right into belief number 9, which says that we operate in order to avoid pain and to go towards pleasure. If there is a habit in your life that you are trying to form or you're trying to change, this is going to be the most useful belief for you. Take, for example, somebody who smokes. They might be smoking because they're trying to alleviate anxiety, they're trying to alleviate some sort of depression that they're feeling at a time. And if we go back to our previous belief that stated that there is a positive intent behind every behavior, when you combine these two beliefs and start to deconstruct the different habits that you have, you will see that there may have been an experience at some point in the past in where you attached a meaning from belief number 1 that something was uncomfortable and negative, and that you want to avoid experiencing that again. And so you started living your life in order to avoid having the pain of that experience over and over again, but then it might be a situation where the territory has changed, right? Or you need to create a whole new map to define that territory, as we've seen in one of the previous beliefs. So we start to see how all of these beliefs come together to actually give us the mindset that we need to really create change in our lives. And belief number 9 is very powerful when it comes to changing habits. So if you start deconstructing all of your behaviors that you're uncomfortable with and think about whether you're doing it in order to avoid pain or increase pleasure, and then try to trickle back to what the original belief was that you had that made you associate a negative feeling with that, and why it is that you try to avoid it, you start to really equip yourself for change. So belief number 9 is really powerful for forming and changing habits. As powerful as belief number 9 is, belief number 10 is really powerful when it comes to creating change and going after the life that you love. Belief number 10 is all about realizing that modeling is a powerful tool for accomplishing success. That means that if you see somebody out there, a celebrity, a sports person, somebody in your life who you really look up to, if they're able to achieve something, you're able to achieve that very same thing too. And this ties in with the previous belief where we stated that all people have all the resources that they need in their lives to accomplish a desired result. If you deconstruct what that person has done in their life to come up with the specific practice techniques, the way that they live their lives in terms of their daily habits, the books that they read, the people they surround themselves with, the diet that they have, if you follow in their footsteps, you are likely to achieve very similar or at least very positive results, even though you might be on your own trajectory. Modeling is a tool that we strongly promote in life coaching because it puts into perspective the fact that if one person can achieve something, then somebody else can definitely achieve the same thing. And this goes to a point of thinking that I like to reflect on, especially being a musician, where I compare myself a lot to other people, and sometimes I tell myself that I don't have a natural talent for something. It's not that I don't have the natural talent, but maybe that I haven't practiced as effectively as someone else. 90% of life is about the way that you practice. So modeling after people who you look up to in terms of the way that they live their life, the process that they follow to get to where they are, is a very good approach that you can use to get to the position that you want to be at in life. Okay, there you have it. It took a few iterations, but we finally covered the 10 beliefs that I think that you should adopt to prepare us for the work that we're going to do on this channel. Even if you're not interested in engineering your life for success, and in fact, even if this is the only video that you watch of mine, the content that is in here is extremely powerful. Remember that beliefs are the filters through which you see the world. The life that you live is all dependent on the filters that you choose to perceive the world through. You can change them. You may not be able to change the experiences of your past. You may not be able to choose how people interact with you all the time, but you certainly can change the meaning that you ascribe to them and the power that you believe that you have to choose the trajectory that you're on. So combining all these 10 beliefs will equip you to have a very powerful mindset, and you'll start to see so many more doors opening up. This is the most beneficial, constructive way that you can live your life, is to believe that you have the power to change things, that people are resourceful, that your states are the only things that you need to change in order to get a better emotion and a better way of thinking. So please encourage your friends to watch this video if you found it helpful. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. I really look forward to seeing you in the next video. Goodbye.